Hello and welcome to today's 4Ps podcast. This podcast episode is a little different. We are 4 days away from the 250th um, anniversary, the birthday of the United States of America. Now, today I know that I have a lot of listeners throughout the world, especially Australia and Canada. But today we are going to give you a lesson in U.S. history. But we're not going to give you the standard rah-rah message that you always get on U.S. history, George Washington, all that other stuff. We are going to compare the history of the United States, give or take a couple of thousand incidents that happen in this country, but we're going to compare it to the 4Ps. And the 4Ps are purpose, planning, passion, and persistence. And I am a huge history buff. One thing that you have to know, if you haven't known already, I actually have a commercial on this guy. He has been an inspiration in my entire life. His name is Ulysses S. Grant. And I'm going to tell you, I loved his story. This is a man who um, went to West Point and then got kicked out of the army. He went home. He learned his lesson when it comes to slavery. He learned his lesson when it came to a whole bunch of different things. And he moved on and just out of every transition made himself better. And he is the embodiment of so many people's lives in the world, not only in the United States of America, but in the world. He is the embodiment of what we are. He has gone through ups and downs, and he kept moving forward. His whole entire life, he kept moving forward. He was a very principled man. And I'm just going to stop right here because I can have this whole episode on Ulysses S. Grant. One thing I loved about Ulysses S. Grant, he was a very principled man. He actually set a slave free. And I am going to speak in slave time terms. So don't sit there and say, oh my God, that was the most racist thing you ever said. Remember, I'm talking 1800s here, mid 1800s. He set a man free who could have made him a lot of money. He could have made him enough money so he could live a year off of selling this slave. But instead of doing that, he was in Missouri. He set the man free because he was a principled person. He didn't really believe in it. However, his in-laws believed in it wholeheartedly. He worked side by side with slaves, all that other stuff. I mean, there are so many things. And that's how we are as people, because there's a lot of things that we believe in or don't believe in, and we do it because the circumstances and the what for and this that, and the other, and all the other things that are going on. But that's not what we're talking about today. One day I will have a podcast episode on strictly on Ulysses S. Grant, and we'll love it. And you guys will probably be like, "Oh my God, shut up about Grant." But I have notes today, because I want to make sure that what I am saying, I want to make sure it's layered up. So what I'm talking about today is literally how our independence, how our years of growing up as a country, how that equates to you as a person. You know, I'm going to start with July 4th, 1776, the day, the day, 250 years ago. Now, I want you to think before July 4th, 1776. These are some people who were, you know, wanting to be, some of them, like even like George Washington. George Washington served in the British Army. He was actually a ranking officer in the British Army. He fought and wore the cloth of Britain. He fought in the French and Indian War. He fought in just, he was a Brit in every sense of the word. But he didn't feel that he got the recognition he deserved. He wanted to, so all of everybody in the revolutionary time, or everybody that wanted independence. Now remember, I said everybody that wanted independence. Not everybody in the colony, in the 13 colonies, wanted independence. Some people were happy with what was going on, but the thing is they wanted that independence, when we declared our independence and things like that. And so sometimes, even if you think about us, as people. Think about going back to the times that we felt our independence and we wanted independence. I think back to when I was a young kid, and I remember I could not wait. And I really couldn't. And just like the Declaration of Independence was that document that realized that, oh my gosh, you are independent now, and people are going to recognize you. I'll never forget. I couldn't wait. My senior year in high school, I went to Williamsville East High School in Williamsville, New York, suburb of Buffalo, and I was there, and I could not wait. I absolutely couldn't wait to get my diploma so I can be a grown man. Couldn't wait. I was at Art Park. It's called Art Park. It's in Lewiston, New York. That's where we had our graduation. They called my name. I walked up on stage. I got my diploma, and I don't think I was 3 steps from the table. And I looked down and I saw this little red diploma thing, because our colors were red and orange. And I saw, or red, orange, and yellow, I guess. And I saw my name written in the diploma, and knew that I did not have my days of going back to high school, my days of the regiment, of getting grounded because of my schoolwork or whatever. They were over. And I realized that I was independent. And the shock, I'm not joking, the shock that came over me at 18, that, oh my gosh, this is real. And it really did hit me. I think about people who, I hate my job and da 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 da. I don't want to do this. I want to do something different. And yes, they get another job. They do something better. We think that the grass is greener on the other side. Many times it is. So don't think I'm thinking like, oh, stay in your circumstance. That's not what I'm talking about. But what I'm saying is sometimes our desire for self-rule, our desire for independence, our desire for something new, we just go out and do it. And we just go flat out, and this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And then when the reality of doing it comes to fruition, we sometimes say, did I think all of this through? I'm going to tell you 95% of the time you didn't. We don't. And in the case of the United States, they really didn't. Everybody talks about, like, our independence, that 1776 we were independent. We fought for a little bit, against the Brits. We kicked their ass, and then, which we really didn't, we won, but we didn't like blow them away, okay? We win, George Washington swears in, becomes president, and that's it. That is not what happened. Okay. That's how a lot of it's written, because you don't have time to really talk about it. And I don't really have time to talk about it here. But I am going to tell you that the war was essentially over in 1781. Okay. The Treaty of Versailles, I think, was signed in 1786 or something like that. But Treaty of Paris, I'm sorry. But anyway, once that, there was a time where the war was over. So from 1781 to 1789, a lot of people don't talk about that time in history. Why do they not talk about that time in history? Because it was the time in history where we were pretty much just floating. We were out there. And so the reason why I'm bringing we were floating, we were out there, because a lot of times when we get what we want, and we finally know our purpose, and we finally know what we want to do, and we finally, go and do our thing, there's a period of time, hopefully it's not 8 years, but there is a period of time where we're kind of floating because we didn't think everything. So I want you to think about what the United States of America was, okay? We were 13 individual colonies, 13 colonies that were governed differently in so many different ways. Yes, all 13 were still subject to rule by the King of England, but we were 13 separate colonies. We came together to unite, all right, to fight against our common enemy. But we were so different. Massachusetts was different from South Carolina. South Carolina was different from Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was different than from Georgia, so on, so on, and so on. Even after, so think about this, after the Revolutionary War was over, then we even had separate countries or separate states with separate currency. So think about today, you driving from North Carolina to South Carolina, you have some cash in your pocket, and the cash is no good in South Carolina because you have North Carolina money. I'm not taking your North Carolina money. And it was actually, they had different banks. They had to centralize, and that happened eventually. We're not going to have a history lesson, but that's what happened. We had what was called the Articles of Confederation. I love to talk to people about who is the first president of the United States. Everybody says George Washington. And you know what? In a way, that is a true statement because he is the first president of the United States under the United States Constitution. But there were 8 men before him. And you could see it in the corner, the picture of these 8 guys that no one talks about. You know why? Because it was not successful during that time. It was under the Articles of Confederation. It started with John Hanson. And these 8 guys that ran, they had a year term. They had basically no power at all. They were just like figureheads, you know what I mean? But still, there were 8 people who ran this country before George Washington was sworn in. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because sometimes when we start out with our purpose, we start out with emotion. We start out like, oh, I'm going to do this and this is what's going to happen, but we don't really consider everything that we need to consider in order to be successful at our purpose. We have to plan, and we have to plan efficiently. Now, like I said, I am writing notes today because I do not want to mess up. Usually I'm a free, you've been listening to me for years and I've been just like doing this. So, anyway, I do want to tell you this. Here are the first 8 presidents of the United States. So you guys, if you guys are you guys are at some kind of cocktail party or something like that, and you want to prove that you're smart, you can do this. The first 8 office holders were John Hanson, Samuel Huntington, Thomas McKean, Elias. I'm going to say it. I'm going to try it. Bunat. I don't know. Thomas Mifflin. And I'm going to spell Elias's name because I feel bad because I'm messing up his name and whatever. But it's Boudinot. All right. Then we had Thomas Mifflin. We had Richard Henry Lee. John Hancock was actually a president of the United States under the Articles of Confederation, and Nathaniel Gorham. These people were all presidents of the United States at one time. They were all the quote unquote leader. Then, when they realized that all this stuff was jacked up and we were going nowhere, we literally became to the point where like, hey, we got to do something better. So they came up with the Constitution. And the thing about the Constitution is this. Here are some things that the Constitution says, and the reason I did write this down, I am looking down. The Constitution begins with the words, we the people. Now, I didn't have to write that down. I learned that back in 4th grade. But it says, in order to form a more perfect union. It doesn't say in order to form a perfect union. A lot of people today say there's so many things wrong with the United States, and they're right. They're absolutely right. There's so many things wrong with the United States of America. There's so many things wrong with me too. Okay. But every single day I get up, I try to be a better person than what I was before. I try. I make changes. I do things to make myself a better person. The United States, one thing that is so great about this country is that we get up every single day trying to make this country better than what it was before. We do. I think about what our country is now compared to what our country was before. And I'm going to tell you, one reason why we're so strong is because the things that we do as a nation. We want to be better. We just want to be better. And so, one thing I want to tell you, in order to build a perfect union, all right, now, the thing is, with the Constitution, even with the Constitution, we write the piece of paper and we're like, all right, we're done. We got it. Constitution, that's it. No, there are 27 amendments to the Constitution. So somewhere our plan needed to be altered in order to make ourselves better. And that's one thing that I want us all to do. I write about it in the book, The Four P's of You. I talk about Blockbuster, and Blockbuster is like the quintessential, we're going to pick on Blockbuster forever and ever and ever. And I hate to say that, but we do. All right. They had a great plan and then they jacked it up because they never changed the plan. And that's what happened here, okay, with Blockbuster. But that should not, and it's not happening in the United States. We had a plan. We're wrong. We may go and fight a little bit about it and argue about it, but then we make the changes. We do make the necessary changes. One thing about history is we have done good things to make things right. And that is one thing I do love about that. And that's one thing I want you as people to think about and try to make right as well. I want you to go out and try to make things right and do the things that you're supposed to do to make yourself better. Make amendments to your plan. Make amendments to your plan, and if you do that, you are going to be in such a better place if you make amendments to your plan. Don't say this is the way it's always been done. Don't say I have to do it this way because. And that's one thing I love about the United States of America is because we don't do that. We make changes. We sometimes, and even now, and I don't want to get political, but the pendulum swing, it just moves so hard from one spot to the next. I do think we need to watch how we change. But we do make those changes and we do such a good job at doing that. And we need to continue to do that. And you, as an individual, you need to make those changes as well when it's necessary. Yes, and we should always make sure that when we are making changes, we make our changes not out of emotion. And that's one thing that's happening, I think, with our country as a whole. We are so angry with each other and some certain things. I mean, we take things personal. I don't know if it's because of social media or I don't know, but we need to watch it. When we come back, we're going to talk about passion and we're going to talk about persistence. And then I'm going to finish this off. We'll be right back right after this.
In 1854, Ulysses S. Grant resigned from the United States Army. At the time, he was struggling. Some have connected his resignation to alcohol, though the full story remains debated. He could have believed his best days were behind him, but they were not. Grant returned to service, rose through the ranks, and helped lead the Union to victory in the Civil War. By 1868, he was an American hero. And on March 4, 1869, Ulysses S. Grant was sworn in as President of the United States. Your setbacks do not have to be your ending. You too can transform. Your story is not over. Discover more powerful stories of resilience, breakthrough, and hope in Stories of Miraculous Transformation. Available now wherever you buy books.
Purpose gives your life direction. Planning turns that direction into action. Passion gives your mission energy. Persistence keeps you moving when the road gets hard. The 4 P's of You is more than a book. It is a framework for building a life with meaning, focus, and follow through. Discover your purpose. Create your plan. Fuel it with passion. Finish with persistence. The 4 P's of You by Trunnis Goggins II. Available wherever books are sold.
Welcome back to the final section of me running my mouth. No, actually talking about the United States of America and how it does relate to the 4 P's of You. Again, I got my notes out here so I don't ramble too much. But one thing I do want to say about this is about passion. We're going to talk about passion and persistence. And I am very passionate about this country. I love this country. It's where I'm from. If you look in the corner, you will see a picture of I believe it's my great grandfather. It was on my father's mother's side. It was I think it was my grandmother's grandfather, I think. All right. He was a Union soldier. Okay. And the history, again, it's funny how history is like, it's different. I know this picture was taken during Reconstruction. So this was after the Civil War, that he was a soldier. I don't know if he was a soldier during, I don't know too much about it, but I do know that that's one of my grandfathers, a long time ago. Now, with him, I will say that I've had on both sides of my family. We've all served. We've had members serve in the military. My grandfather, my mother's father, served in the military. I had an uncle. My dad's brother served in the army, and then I've had cousins. Obviously, my brother and myself served, and now we have a new generation of people serving in the military. I am proud to say that I am the father of an active duty service member, and I am very proud to say that, because again, he is. This is a great country to fight for. This is a great country to stand for. Again, going back to what I said before, is it perfect? No. Is anything on this earth perfect? Not at all. But it is great, and there's a passion, and a lot of people will first thing, a lot of especially people of color, they're going to say, how can you love this country because of all the racism and all the injustices? The answer is yes. There has been a lot of injustice. My grandfather, my mother's father, right, World War II veteran, right, a couple of years after World War II, had to go in the back of a restaurant. This is a man who fought for your country back then, and then had to go in the back of a restaurant in order to get his food. Out the back door. Don't get it in the front door. You don't deserve to be in the front door. This is awful. But you know what? I will tell you right now, if you went, he's now passed away, but if you went into his garage, if you went outside, he would put that American flag up every single day. He loved this country and loved it. He died. He actually was buried in his Air Force uniform. That's how much he loved this country. He was buried in his uniform, had a military funeral. Ironically, about his funeral, and I'm going off a little bit on a tangent. He did not have a flyover, but that day they had three F-16 fighters fly over. It was by happenstance, and it happened right at the gravesite. It was literally like it was like that was supposed to be. He was supposed to have a flyover, and he got it, inadvertently. Then there's another man. His name is Doris Miller. And if you don't know this man, you need to know. He was a cook on the USS West Virginia during Pearl Harbor on December 7th, 1941. He was a black man. He was not allowed to serve in combat. He wasn't supposed to do anything of that nature. But you know what? When they were being attacked, he actually went. He could have just like bailed. Dude, I'm not trained for this. Bye. Peace out. He didn't. He actually went and he rescued fellow sailors. You notice how I said fellow sailors? I don't know if they were black or they were white. There were probably a lot of them were white, no doubt about it. But he rescued fellow sailors. He also tried to save his captain who was wounded, and he then took a 50 cal anti-aircraft gun and shot at Japanese fighters until he ran out of ammunition. He was the first black sailor to earn the Navy Cross, and his name is Doris Miller, a phenomenal person who, again, his passion for this country, because it wasn't, you notice I said his passion for his country, not his passion to stay alive. If he wanted to stay alive, he would jump ship and be gone. He would have lived. He absolutely would have lived if he would have bailed. He didn't. He stood, he fought, and he won the Navy Cross. Great person. Another thing about courage, if you ever look, and you'll see the signatures here in the corner, if you look at the signatures of the Declaration of Independence, the funny thing about the Declaration of Independence is the people who signed the Declaration of Independence, they always say, these rich landowners, and they were rich white landowners, no doubt about it, okay? But they had money. They had money, but they were so passionate about having something different that they wanted to go ahead. They wanted to sign a Declaration of Independence. They wanted to be independent. They knew that there was something better. They all risked treason. Think about it. If somebody went right now and tried to declare, let's say West Virginia, let's go back to West Virginia because I just brought up the state. If somebody wanted in West Virginia to declare independence, to declare West Virginia independent, I can guarantee you that is treason, and you're going to get jacked up by the United States Army, whatever we can send over there. I mean, the Army would be in the Marines, so the only two, they would just beat the crap out of them. And that independent movement would not last that long. So remember, these individuals who signed the Declaration of Independence under treason, that was a treasonous act. No doubt about it. And so if you look at the signatures of the Declaration of Independence, it's not even orderly. It's kind of got a couple on one side, a couple over, got John Hancock. Because John Hancock, that was my boy right there. Because I could see him right now. Because everybody else like signed their name all small and stuff like that. John's like, hey, I'm signing this shit. This is mine. I did it. This is me. Right? That guy was willing. So, and even though the Declaration of Independence was declared on July 4th, 1776, it wasn't presented until August 2nd. 1776. And the reason why it wasn't presented until that day is because they literally had to have a carrier go around and find the people who declared independence. They had to go look for them because they like, okay, we're independent, got to go, bye, because I do not want to get caught. These people were under the risk of losing everything. The British were coming after them. They were the people who were causing the problem. Get them out of the way, we're going to be okay. A lot of them, some of them did. They got caught, some of them, but most of them did not. And then that's a lot of passion. So you have to have passion in whatever you believe in, you got to do it. And you got to do it to the point to where, hey, you got to take some risk and you've got to do things to do that. So whatever you're passionate about, first of all, it has to be your passion. It has to be your purpose, it has to be things you do. And you have to go out and you have to realize that you have to pursue it. And I'm not going to say by all means necessary. Some things you got to back off a little bit. I'm not saying to pursue it to your death. There's certain things that you will not have to pursue to your death. Do not pursue an accounting job to your death. That is not probably something anybody would advise you to do. But you have to make sure that you do realize that once you start pursuing independence, once you start pursuing your purpose, once you start pursuing these things, that there are things that you're going to have to sacrifice. There are times in this time that you're going to have to be uncomfortable and you have to be wise and do it. And that leads me to persistence. One thing about this country is the things that we have gone through and had to keep moving forward. Obviously, the Revolutionary War. We had the Civil War, where that was brother against brother. We were all killing each other. But you know what? The funny thing about the Civil War was necessary because then we became, and it was necessary. I'll tell you, for the brother like me, yes, it was very necessary. But it was necessary because it also brought us as a nation, as a mature nation. We matured. We became strong. We now found new ways of warfare. We now built new weapons. We went from a fledgling nation, and after those 4 years, we became a strong nation, and we grew. Eventually, the Civil War actually started the building blocks. Because remember, if you think about it, you have Civil War, then you have there was not that much distance between the Civil War and World War II. It was 80 years between those times. That's not a lot of time if you think about it on a history chart. But think about World War I. It was even less. Okay, so we were moving up. We were growing as a nation, and we did things to expand. We thought about innovative ways. I mean, think about the way technology changed during the Civil War. A lot of that technology came from the United States. It built us into a different, stronger, more mature, more innovative nation. Probably at the time, the most innovative nation on the earth. It could have been. I'm not going to debate that. But even through that persistence, we had some spells. After World War II, we became the superpower. We were the strongest nation on the planet. We were all that and a bag of chips. Then we had the Korean War that ended in a stalemate. just ended. As a matter of fact, technically, this Korean War is still going on. It just ended right there at the 38th parallel. Done. After that, we had the Vietnam War, which was, you know, I don't know. I know a lot of Vietnam vets. I don't even know what to say about that war. But and then we had um, Watergate, and we had inflation. We had energy shortages. We went through a time where, all that greatness, after World War II quickly deteriorated. And in 1979, Jimmy Carter gave a speech called the Malaise Speech. And he spoke about the crisis that was deeper than inflation. It was deeper than gas lines. It was deeper than politics. It was something painful. Remember, we just got out of Vietnam and Watergate, like just got out of it. The last troop left Vietnam in 1976. And here it is, 1979. And Jimmy Carter witnessed that as a nation, we were not going in the right direction. And this is what he said: the erosion of our confidence in the future is threatening to destroy the social and political fabric of America. He said that in 1979. I'm going to read that to you again. The erosion of our confidence in the future is threatening to destroy the social and political fabric of America. And the reason why I'm bringing that up is because there are a lot of times we are successful. Bruce Springsteen wrote a song called "Glory Days," and if you listen to that, back in the day, your glory days should be ahead of you and not behind you. The thing is, at this point in 1979, Jimmy Carter recognized that America collectively were looking at our glory days as behind us and not in front of us. And it was really, really painful for him to see. The Malay speech, a lot of people sit there and say that that was the speech that probably caused him not to be reelected in 1980, because I think it was probably the most honest political speech ever written. But it gave us time to pause and think about where we're going. Personally, there are times where we think that our best days are behind us. I hear people, especially my age, I'm 55, and I listen to a lot of people my age like, oh, that was then, I can't do that now. No, you probably can't do that now. There's a lot of things physically I cannot do like I used to do back in the day, but I can do things differently. And I can change and operate in a way differently where I can do things and still be better than I was before. I thoroughly believe that my best days are ahead of me. And I hope that you do too. And the reason why I bring that up is because we have to be honest. We have to be just like Jimmy Carter. Hey, man, we're jacking up. We're jacking up. We got to fix this. All right. And we have to be honest enough with each other and trust ourselves enough to know that, when we're jacking up, we gotta, like what they say in the Navy, we gotta turn to, right? And then we gotta make those adjustments and do what we have to do. And we did. In the 80s and 90s under Reagan and under Bill Clinton, and a little bit under George H.W. Bush, things were great. We had a strong economy. We had the 80s and 90s, the 80s were like big time, the big shoulder pads for women and all that other stuff, and Mercedes Benz and television shows like Dallas and Falcon Crest. Everybody was about the money back then. Even the movies back then were all about the money. Michael J. Fox had a Bright Lights, Big City or something like that. But it was all about excess and things like that. Then the 90s, the stock market and all these things started happening. And the biggest economic expansion in the history of the world was in the history of this country was in the 90s. We did all these great things, and we were moving, and we almost got to the point where we got comfortable. And that happens even in our own life. We hit a spot where, boom, we are making it. We are doing what we got to do, right? And we get real comfortable. And you have to, we all work to strive for comfort, but don't ever get too comfortable. There's a difference. I want you to feel a level of comfort, but don't get comfortable, because when you get too comfortable, you let your guard down and things happen. And that's exactly what happened to us in the United States. 2 years after the 90s ended, we had 9/11, and it was bad. And there's a couple things, if you read, I'm not talking conspiracy stuff, I'm actually talking real stuff. If you read, there were probably a couple times you could have avoided 9/11, and we did not do that. We had our backs turned. There were so many more, there were things that were more important. We were so wrapped up in really first world problems that when we finally got hit, um, we realized where we were, and it wasn't in a good spot. And now we're in a post 9/11 era. And in that post 9/11 era, um, things have changed. Things have changed a lot. We are going through another time of transition. Like I said in the beginning, in the last segment, the pendulum just swings so hard. And I think the reason why it swings so hard one way to the other is because there's a sense of our identity is being lost sometimes. Are we still proud to be Americans? Yes. But sometimes, I think one of the reasons why we fight so much on social media and politics and stuff like that is because we're still trying to find out who we are. And sometimes when things happen to us, and I'm talking about persistence now, when things happen to us personally, it affects who we are. It affects, because now our worldview, our view of our environment, our view of things that are supposed to be changes dramatically and dramatically. And we don't know where we are. And sometimes we fight with ourselves. Sometimes we make dumb decisions. Sometimes we do one thing and then we move real fast to do another, and we're kind of lost. We're confused. And I think that after 9/11, even though that was literally 25 years ago, I still think that there's something going on where we're making these drastic swings. We don't know sometimes our identity. We don't know what America is supposed to be, and we're fighting because everybody has their own idea of what America is trying to be, and that's even with us. I went through some traumatic things back last decade, very traumatic, and you guys already know. And it challenged my identity, and it took a long time for me to find out who I really am and what I'm really supposed to do. And those are things that are going on. So, what I want you to think about in your personal application is, what are the things inside that divide you? What are they? And then try to reconcile them. Okay. Remember, your best days should be ahead of you. It doesn't matter how much time you have left, they should be ahead of you. Your best days should be ahead of you. I am lucky enough to know that, or lucky enough to live. I lived in 1976, and I saw the 200th anniversary. I don't remember much about it. And now I was 5 years old in 1976, not 1776. I'm old, but I'm not that old. And then I am 55 now in this year, 2026, and I've got to see the 250th anniversary. There is a possibility, though slim as it may be, where I might be here to see America at 300. And I'm not going to ever, I'm not ruling that out as a possibility. I would love to see America 200, 250, and 300. That would be so cool. All right. And I'm going to try to make that. All right. So I got 50 years to go, and I think I can do that. But especially with miracles, modern science, and all that other stuff. But if you think about it, we've grown quite a bit. There are a lot of things that have changed. I was old enough, to be born, um, one of the only black kids in my neighborhood, one of the only ones. And I was old enough, I was born 3 years after Martin Luther King died, and I was fortunate enough to see a black man get elected president in President Obama. Um, I have seen a lot of great things. I've seen a lot of change. I've seen a lot of bad things. We all have. All right. We've seen a lot of ugly things that has happened in this nation. There's no doubt about it. But we've seen a lot of good things as well. And I do seriously believe that our best days as a nation are ahead of us. And I do believe that your best days, if you constantly analyze, hold yourself accountable, and do the things that need to be done, I believe that your best days are ahead of you as well. And I am looking forward to the next 50 years. I'm looking forward to the next 250. The greatest thing about it is I know some of the people who will be here for sure to celebrate the 300. And those are my grandkids. And mentor your children, mentor young ones, mentor young people, not just for yourself. Believe me, I know that there are a lot of crappy things that happen in this nation. I know there's homelessness, there's drug abuse, there's murders, there's racism, there's so many bad things that happen in this nation. But I also know that there are so many good things that you enjoyed in this country. I know it. There's no doubt about it. And if you sit there and say you have not enjoyed anything, you're lying. There are some great things. And if you believe that it could be better, then go out and do something to make sure the next generation, hopefully those are your children and grandchildren, they have something even better than you. You know, I was born in a way where my dad was born in 1934 in Anniston, Alabama. It was not a good place for a Black person to be. And I ended up having a better life than my dad because he worked very hard to make sure that we had a better life. His father worked very hard to make sure that they had a better life than what he had. And so on and so on and so on. It is incumbent upon us to make sure that our kids and our next generation, if you don't have kids, have a better life than what we had. We have to leave this place better than how we found it. And it's up to us. And you know what? I'm going to say this one last thing. We have to work together. I don't care what liberal, conservative, Democrat, Republican, Black, white, Hispanic, don't care. Work together to make this world better. Next week, we are going to have a great guest on our podcast that was on our podcast before. It is actually going to be a throwback podcast. It is going to be Angela Means. It will be a throwback podcast. You're going to love the podcast. If you guys don't know who Angela Means is, if you saw the movie Friday, you'll know exactly who she is. Until next week, have a good one. Oh, by the way, tomorrow is Canada Day. And even though I talked a whole bunch about America and its independence, happy Canada Day to those who are in Canada. And to my Americans, happy Independence Day. And let's make it a great, safe time with family, friends, and freedom. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
There comes a point in life when the path you planned no longer feels like the path you are meant to walk. You can keep standing where the world placed you, or you can choose to turn the light on and move in a new direction. Unscrewed is a story about change, courage, and finding contentment in unexpected places. It is for the person who has been told to stay quiet, stay comfortable, and stay in line. But deep down, you know there is more. More purpose, more freedom, more life waiting on the other side of fear. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is stand up, even when everything around you tells you to stand down. Unscrewed, standing up in a world that tells you to stand down, by Goggins and Strocon.
Available now wherever you buy books.